Hey there everybody, it is Poober here now for episode 23 of my Factorio series. As we move further and further into the late game, I think it is about time that we finally overhaul my circuit factories and put my ammo to good use that we worked on last time. One big reason why I want to work on overhauling the circuit factories today is because if you check out this belt line here where we have the red circuits just coming in, it's really just coming in at a very trickling type of rate. It's not very fully compressed, and this is unfortunately about as max throughput as I'm getting. And to further add insult to that is the fact that we have all of my red circuit factories with full productivity 3 modules in all of these assemblers here, so this is about as efficient as the production of the red circuits will get, unfortunately. And this build doesn't allow for any beacons, so not only should I overhaul this factory just because I need to allow beacons in the future anyway, but I really want to increase the production of red circuits so that we can actually build up my modules. So a couple episodes ago, I did install this module factory, and from the lights here you can see this is indicative of how much storage I have for each of the types of modules. So our efficiency modules are actually at full storage for what I put for the storage capacity. We have about 200, a little less than that actually, of the efficiency module 3s, and then we have a full steel chest worth of the efficiency modules 1, and that way I have those for the miners in the future. And then we have about a little over 150 of the efficiency modules too. In terms of the production and speed modules though, these are what I want the most of because that's what's going to be supplying the bulk of our assemblers and beacons in the future. So I'm at full capacity for the productivity and speed modules 1 through 2, but in terms of the speed and productivity module 3s that I'm actually going to be using in the future, that's where I'm really lagging behind. So we're only at the first tier in terms of my capacity that I've requested. So this light turns on if we have more than 125 of the productivity module 3s, and I think it's a similar condition for the speed modules. So ideally I want it to turn red or blue equivalently to the very end, which would mean we'd have greater than 500 each of the productivity module 3s and the speed module 3s over on this side. So as you can tell, it is basically not producing anything. And again, that's where it kind of comes full circle with my red circuit problem. Our green circuits are keeping up okay, but really the red circuit factory just isn't keeping up. So the first thing I'm planning on doing today is ripping this up and replacing it with something that is beaconed and much more efficient. Here's the clean slate I am working with, so now we just have to figure out what to put in it. And here's the red circuit factory now fully installed. I even had enough speed 3 modules and productivity 3 modules saved up to supply all of the beacons and the assembler 3s. So that is awesome, and it is a design that I ended up creating on my own in my test world, and I brought it over here. So theoretically it should craft 1.5 thousand red circuits per minute, assuming I have full throughput coming through for my green circuits, my plastic, and my copper plate. Now I do have this fed from a couple different lines, so we have copper plate coming fully from the left hand side, but then our plastic and our green circuits are partly coming over here from the left and then over here from the right as well, as it feeds the entire bottom row and then a couple of the assemblers over here from the right hand side. One thing I did want to keep in mind when I was designing this was that I wanted full beacon coverage from both sides, and I did want it to be tileable, which this is. So if you guys are interested in this blueprint, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll be glad to include the string for that. It's only tileable vertically because we have the two copper plate assemblers over here to the left-hand side. So unfortunately you can't tile it left to right, but you can do it from top to bottom. So as you can tell, we have a much greater throughput for our red circuits. It's now fully supplying our main bus, and I think the problem now will be just making sure that our plastic and our green circuits keeps up, which means I'm going to be doing a green circuit factory next. We're going to be ripping up this thing and replacing it with another green circuit beaconed build. And finally, here is the green circuit factory now mostly installed. I am very obviously missing my Speed 3 and Productivity 3 modules that will be going in here eventually, but this is another factory that I have designed on my own. It should be mostly full beacon coverage to all of the assemblers, and it does have a decent output of 2.5 or close to that thousand green circuits per minute, as we can see on the production chart here. There we go. But as we are now into nighttime, it is dropping, and you can see we are now in an energy crisis. This does happen only at night, which is why my throughput is basically nothing at nighttime. So I think that means we have to do yet another overhaul, and that is going to be of my uranium and kovarex enrichment section, which I have over here, and I've primarily only been using it for the uranium-238 to supply my ammo. But I think with the fact that we have my solar panels fully installed throughout the entire train rail electrical grid, what that means is I'm going to have to supplement either with some more steam power or with a uranium fuel cell build. So I think I'm going to go with the latter option. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and revamp the uranium section one more time and come back with a uranium fuel cell build. We are back yet again, and this time with two builds to show off. The first one being a uranium smelting / kovarex enrichment process build. I did design half of it, being this bottom half here, while the other half I do have to give all credit to Eladrius for designing the smarts and the actual kovarex enrichment process design here. But we'll talk about the smelting section first. We have our regular train station, which we had for the previous build, but this time the uranium ore makes its way down to the bottom and then gets fed up into these lines here. Once the uranium makes its way down the bottom of the line here, it gets smelted with a 99% chance to get smelted into the uranium-238, just like we talked about last time, and a 1% chance to get smelted into the uranium-235. Both products are divvied up onto half of the belt line here, where it makes its way down to the kovarex enrichment process section. So again, all credit goes to Eladrius for this design, but it's really intelligent because he is able to avoid jamming with this design. I can't explain all of how it works, but in a nutshell, we have these filter inserters here that you'll notice on the sides of the main belt line, and this will only be picking up the uranium-238. It then puts the uranium-238 into this box here, where this inserter picks up exactly the right amount of the uranium-238 to feed the kovarex enrichment process centrifuge, which is this one here, and then it recycles the uranium-235 that we put into the box here. Once there is more than 40 of the uranium-235, it gets expelled back onto the main line here and then into our main system. At the very end, we're actually going to have just a box for our uranium-235 while we're going to let the rest of the 238 get back onto our main bus and supply our main bus line, mainly our ammo, and then bots can pick up the uranium-235 and supply it to our nuclear weapons, which we now have in our recipe section right here. The rest of what I have down on the line, we have for pickup of the empty uranium fuel cells. We also have actual fuel cell production itself, and then some nuclear fuel options here once we get rocket fuel and so on. But I think it's probably better to actually show how this works than talk about it. So let's go ahead and hook it up. And I am unfortunately going to have to prime the first centrifuge. And unfortunately, I only have 91 of the uranium-235 built up from my previous build. So we're only going to be able to get 2 up and running until we get more uranium-235. So I believe we put it into, I want to say, this box here. And we'll do the same on the other side. There we go. So you can see this lighting up, kind of a green halo around it, and it is now working. Now, one advantage to the kovarex enrichment process is that unlike the centrifuges that only smelt the uranium ore, this has a for sure chance of generating 1 uranium-235 every 50 seconds, and that is without any modules in place. Obviously, once we get the beacons fully moduled as well as the actual centrifuges itself, it will be a much quicker rate of uranium-235 production. So let's wait for this to take action. Hopefully it'll start producing more uranium-235 in just a minute here. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about the other build that I have created. And this is actually all credit to another designer. I knew I needed a nuclear power plant, and I didn't want to design it because it's getting a little late in the night and I'm running a little out of patience and ready to move on with something new. So hopefully this will just be a temporary nuclear power plant, but all credit goes to Yo-Yo Ma for this design. It's pretty popular on Factorio prints, so you can find it there. It'll also be in the description box down below. But we're going to have trains come in to deliver water to these stations here. We've already got some water built up. And then once we have the uranium fuel cells, it will get dropped off by the bots into these 4 nuclear reactors. And then it should hopefully generate energy. We haven't turned this on yet, obviously, so I'm just going to have to keep my fingers crossed that it actually works as intended, and it's still working despite the new patches since this was last released to Factorio prints. So let me wait for some nuclear fuel cells to get produced, and then we'll make sure this gets turned on properly. I have finally built up enough uranium-235 to start working on the uranium fuel cells. So I've got that now, and they're finally getting fed into the nuclear reactors. And they are just about to fully reach 500 degrees Celsius to fully turn on the nuclear setup. Should be any minute now. And here we go. We can see it in action. We finally have our first steam coming from the turbines here. This is wonderful. This should solve the bulk of my recent electricity problems for hopefully the short term. Eventually we'll have more solar panels throughout our system and hopefully a much larger nuclear setup in the future. But for now, this should be a good temporary solution. So I'm going to let this just continue to run. It looks like it should be working just fine. It'll continue to get the nuclear fuel cells as needed. And let's go ahead and take a look back at the kovarex enrichment process again, now that it should be fully up and running with the uranium-235 and the 238 now smelted. So this demonstrates here how we have half of the beltline devoted to the uranium-238. The other half will be for the 235 once it gets fully backed up. And then it makes its way here to the centrifuges, and the reason why it doesn't jam is because we never actually add any uranium-238 back onto the beltline. We only take as much as is needed, so that way we can still produce the 235 even when we no longer need to produce the uranium-238, as is the case here. So I'm going to let this assembler keep working on the uranium fuel cells, keep letting this build up. We'll eventually get to our nuclear fuel, But in the meantime, we should start to have our atomic weapons, so let's go take a look and see if we have any built up, and then we can finally make use of that ammo I was talking about. Looks like I have to request from our buffer chest. I'm going to change the cap here to hold maybe 300 of the uranium-235 perhaps. Let's go fix that real quick. Whoop, went a little too far. Okay, so let's do 300, that's requested. That way if there's any that gets into our logistics system, it'll come right back here to this storage, and it'll pick up from our main belt line here anyway in the meantime and fill it into the box. So it looks like I have to wait a little bit longer before we get the nuclear weapons, but I'll be right back when we do. Yes, now we have finally my first atomic bomb. Let's go ahead and use it. I believe I need a rocket launcher first. We'll put that in this little slot here. And then I think the biters I want to take out is this patch over here. They have been causing me havoc all episode, biting at this wall and these solar panels and things like that. They've been repaired who knows how many times at this point. So we're going to take out these guys, but I only have the one nuclear weapon, so I'm going to go ahead and equip myself with a couple other things. We'll make it a little bit fun. Let's do some defender capsules, and definitely destroyer capsules. And we can go ahead and get rid of the shotgun. I am basically never ever going to use that, except on a very rare occasion. And these are the distractors. I probably don't need those. I will take some slowdown capsules and maybe some poison capsules just in case. My slowdown are right there. I'll just do like 24. Sounds good. And then let's do a similar stack size for the poison capsules. That should be fine. Okay, let's head up there to the biter patch. I should have armor on me, which I do have the upgraded armor. And I have one of those laser turret thingies that's enabled into the armor itself. And we won't worry about taking the tank. We're going to have a little fun at this point, see if we can just kill the biters by hand and with just ourselves. But let me save real quick before I embark on this adventure. It might be a suicide mission, who knows. Okay, all saved and ready to go. Let me make sure I have my atomic bomb equipped. And hopefully I can kill it all in one foul swoop. Let's see, I'm trying not to aggro them. Here goes nothing. Yes. Did we kill them all? Oh, almost. Awesome. We just got rid of a huge problem I've been having with that patch there. Now I just need to let my atomic bombs build up over time. We've just started with one, and it is just the beginning of many, many more to come. So I think with that, it's been a very productive episode for me. I know it's kind of one of the shorter ones, but I've got a lot done between the 4 factories or so that we've gotten installed and the other ones we've gotten replaced, and it's basically been a lot of off-camera work. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks you guys as always for joining me for this episode of Factorio. It has been episode 23, so I hope you'll join me next time for episode 24.